Just a few hours after I said, so fasten your seatbelts, because the Ramadan Bombathon is just getting started. A suicide bomber in Afghanistan killed scores of people and injured hundreds more, Reuters reports. A powerful bomb hidden in a sewage tanker exploded in the morning rush hour in the center of the Afghan capital on Wednesday, police said, killing at least 80 people, wounding hundreds, and damaging embassy buildings. As of this recording, the latest updates put the death toll at 90 and the injured at 400. The victims appeared mainly to have been Afghan civilians. The bomb, one of the deadliest in Kabul and coming at the start of the holy month of Ramadan, exploded close to the fortified entrance to the German embassy, wounding some staff, German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel said. Pictures showed the embassy building with its windows ripped out. One Afghan security guard was killed, and others were likely among the dead, Gabriel said. A spokeswoman for the German Foreign Ministry said the bomber's target was unknown. Such attacks do not change our resolve in continuing to support the Afghan government in the stabilization of the country, Gabriel said. Now, if you're a thoroughly uninformed Western Islamophile, the sort of person who's never read anything remotely resembling an authoritative Muslim source, but nevertheless fancies himself an expert on all things Islamic, you'll look at this story and think to yourself, blowing up civilians in a city full of Muslims? During Ramadan, no less? Surely this suicide bomber stands condemned by his prophet and his God. But if you're the kind of person who studies Islam's most trusted sources regularly, the reasons for these attacks jump out at you as soon as you start reading the reports. For instance, notice that the German foreign minister said, "Such attacks do not change our resolve in continuing to support the Afghan government in the stabilization of the country." The Afghan government is being supported by Western nations, primarily by the United States, but also by Germany and other countries. And the Afghan government is at war with the Taliban. What does the Quran say about Muslims being protected and supported by non-Muslims? In Surah 5, verse 51 of the Quran, Allah commands, "O you who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians as awliya," friends, protectors, helpers. They are but awliya of each other. And if any amongst you takes them as awliya, then surely he is one of them. Verily, Allah guides not those people who are the zalimun, polytheists and wrongdoers and unjust. Allah orders Muslims not to take Jews and Christians as awliya. Awliya is a term that's usually translated as friends, but includes various kinds of relationships, protectors, helpers, supporters, and so on. This verse was the basis for the arrest and imprisonment of Basuki Cahaya Purnama in Indonesia. Purnama was the Christian governor of Jakarta. A Muslim group eventually pointed out that Muslims can't vote for a Christian leader because Allah says not to take Christians as awliya in Surah 5, verse 51. Purnama responded by saying that Surah 5, verse 51 doesn't say that Muslims can't vote for a Christian. The Indonesian courts then weighed in by putting him on trial and sentencing him to 2 years in prison for blasphemy, for suggesting that Surah 5, verse 51 isn't as intolerant as it sounds. This is Indonesia. When we say, show us a moderate Muslim country, Muslims point to Indonesia. But in Indonesia, you'll go to prison for saying that Surah 5, verse 51 doesn't rule out Christian leaders. Now, if that's moderate Indonesia, what do you think things are like in Afghanistan? So, the Quran says that Muslims aren't allowed to take Jews and Christians as friends, protectors, or supporters, and the Afghan government is being supported by various Western nations as they fight Muslims, the Taliban. You'll recall that Allah says in Surah 5, verse 51, that if you disobey Him, that if you take Jews and Christians as awliya, you're not a Muslim. If any amongst you takes them as awliya, then surely he is one of them. According to Allah, not according to me, according to Allah, what sort of people do you find in the government-controlled areas of Afghanistan? You find unbelievers and hypocrites. And what does Allah command Muslims to do to unbelievers and hypocrites? Surah 9, verse 73. O Prophet, strive hard against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, and be harsh against them. Their abode is hell, and worst indeed is that destination. The Arabic word for strive hard here is jihad. Allah commands Muslims to wage jihad against unbelievers and hypocrites. What did the suicide bomber do this morning? He waged jihad against unbelievers and hypocrites. But maybe, just maybe, if we tap our ruby slippers together and say, it's got nothing to do with Islam, it's got nothing to do with Islam, reality will disappear and we'll all be magically whisked away to fantasy land. Until then, the Ramadan Bombathon continues.